So this is the self-development with tactics book.
So, this one's going to be about Parkinson's law, and it is also going to be about Parkinson's law related to quality. So we're also going to talk about quality. We're going to talk about Parkinson's law. It's going to be an amazing episode, and yeah, there's going to be more after the intro. As always, as every single day, you know. And with that being said, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast, in which we are going to talk about some things, in which I'm going to just compile information and give it to you. And it's going to be amazing, you know, and I'm hopefully able to change your mind in certain aspects of life, and also that you are able to see things in a different light, hopefully in a way better light than before. This is kind of the just thing that I'm willing to do here, you know. Before I even want to start the episode, or before I'm even starting the episode, please check out the description, because in the description there's first of all the sources that I'm having, or all the sources that I'm using for this video, and second of all, there's also going to be the link to the social media pages that I'm having, or the social media accounts that I'm having, whatever. And there's also going to be two links that are really, really necessary for this video. One of them is all the notes and all the highlights that you're going to see in this video, which I have been collecting and also just put into a PDF, which you can download for free. So there's a Google Drive link. You're only having to search for the date. It's going to be the date where this video was uploaded. Hopefully, maybe you're also going to search for the title so that you can also just find this document. And there's also going to be a link to some background music, because I think adding background music to the video would actually be pretty great. The problem there is for me that if I'm adding background music, then I would actually kind of handicap my capabilities of just using this video for something else, to use it on Instagram and whatsoever. So if you want to just use your own music, do that. But there's also, I think it's like 5 or 6 tracks also in a Google Drive link that I'm having down in the descriptions. I think actually going to be the first link that you're going to see. And it is like 50 minutes of just background music that you can use for this video, of course. But you could also definitely use it for just working or your own videos. I think you can even download it and whatnot. You know, so please choose the music that you like the best, whether it is one of these that I've uploaded or it is one of your own music. But I guess it would actually make the whole thing a little tiny bit better. So yeah, as you can see on the left side, I've been Googling a little bit and I've been searching for quite some bits or quite some articles as well to just show it to you and to just give you a pretty nice introduction into, first of all, Parkinson's law, which I think it actually has nothing to do with Parkinson as a illness or as a disease. So yeah, you know, let's actually hide right into it. Go right into it. Parkinson's law is the adage or adage that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Now there's going to be more to that afterwards, but there's different ways you can just say that. Like the original one is actually this one. So work expands as to fill the time available for its completion. This is kind of the original one that Parkinson wrote down into an essay that was published by The Economist. As far as I know, yeah, as you can see there, I'm gonna highlight it pretty quickly. The Economist. I'm actually gonna highlight that, you know, so that you're also having that in your PDF that you can download in the description, you know, just check it out. So corollaries. Whatever it actually means, but it is just different ways to say that. And one way is work complicates to fill the available time. The first referenced meaning of the law has dominated and sprouted several corollaries, the best known being the Stock-Sanford corollary to Parkinson law, which is, if you wait until the last minute, it only takes a minute to do. Other include Hostman's corollary to Parkinson law, work contracts to fit the time we give it, and another one would be, in 10 hours a day you have time to fall twice as far behind your commitments as in 5 hours a day. Which is actually quite negative, to be honest. And the last one is, data expands to fill a space available for storage. And there's also a way to generalize that in quite a way, I would say, which is the demand upon a resource tends to expand to match the supply of the resource if the price is zero. And what this all means is going to be part of the next one, which is another site. It is also, so the sites themselves are going to be down in the description as a link, but they're also going to be linked in the PDF with all the highlights. So what is Parkinson's law? If something must be done in a year, it will be done in a year. But, and this is now the point, if it must be done in 6 months, then it will also be done in 6 months. And this is kind of the whole point of Parkinson's law. You know, the whole point of Parkinson's law is that no matter how time you give give yourself for doing something, it is gonna take this amount of time. Which means if you wanna build something in a year, it's gonna take you a year. If you wanna build something in 6 months, it's gonna take you 6 months. The question now is, can I do this with everything? Basically, and in theory, yeah. Practically, not really. Because if you just think about can you build a skyscraper in 2 weeks? Maybe you can, maybe it's actually gonna break down after just 2 minutes of standing up. But I think you cannot. This is you do just also have to be realistic about things if you're just thinking about Parkinson's law. Of course, some things which are really complicated. So the more complicated something is, the more time it's probably going to take you to do that certain thing. If it is a task, if it is a product, if it is just something else, doesn't matter. But the more complicated it is, the more time it will take you. So can you build a skyscraper in 10 minutes? Probably not. It still depends on the dimensions, Just such a high one? Yeah. Like a real one? No. It just really heavily depends on what you think about and what it is all about. So what would it look like to finish a project on a very short period of time? And I think this is a pretty good question, and this is kind of the essential question to this law, because what would it look like? What would it look like for me, it maybe would be editing a video in 10 minutes. How could I be doing that? Is it possible? How could this be done? What are the results that I get from doing something like this by doing such an experiment? I mean, if we talk about actually editing a video or designing something, then it's probably going to be you can actually do it in 10 minutes. But is the quality going to be the same? Is the result going to be the same? The result is probably not going to be the same. If the quality is going to be the same or not, this is something we're going to talk about a little bit later on, because it is something that's really essential. It is also just really essential I would also say in life, but it, of course depends on how you think about things and your values and all these things, just such a lot of factors as it often is in life, But just ask yourself this question. What would it look like, and I'm going to show you again, what would it look like to finish a project on a very short period of time? What would this look like? How could you be doing this? This is often going to include choices and also trade-offs. And as I said before, the more complex the project is, the more time it typically takes to a point. So what would it look like if you finished the project in a very aggressive timescale? If you had to build a skyscraper in a day, how would you go about doing this? And I think it is also a pretty great way to just see if you're actually using your time wisely or in a good way, or if you're just maybe wasting a lot of time by doing nonsensical things or by doing things in a very just ineffective way, because of course you can basically do things in a way less amount of time. It's going to change some things. It's going to definitely change the approach that you're having towards those things. But is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? I don't know, but it's going to be something that we're going to take on later. But something pretty interesting from the founder of IKEA, which is Ingvar Kamprad, or I think actually Ingvar Kamprad, or something like that. So I assume. I don't know. I really don't know. But he once said, if you split your day into 10-minute increments, or segments, I just like segments more, and you try to waste as few of those 10-minute segments as possible, you'll be amazed at what you can get done in a day or whatever. And I think it is actually quite the truth. And the author of this article or this blog post or whatever you want to call it also said, for small tasks, use what I call Ingvar's rule. Assume each task will take no more than 10 minutes to complete, then begin. This includes meetings and phone calls. For some reasons, the default time period of meetings is an hour, whether you need it or not, which is actually also something that I have seen myself and also just a lot of executives are talking about. Why does a meeting have to be an hour long? It's not going to make anything better. It's basically going to make everything worse unless you need this hour. The problem now is it actually going to take you an hour to do just a discussion or to have a discussion or to just talk about something? Or is it actually about Parkinson's law there? It is an hour long, so therefore we're also going to use an hour. But could we also be doing this in 10 minutes? Because I think we can, especially if it is about meetings, especially if it is about just some discussion or some choices that you have to make, If you're having a meeting with your boss, it's going to be well, should I be doing this in that way, in this way? Is it okay like this? And he's going to give you the answer, and then that's fucking it with the meeting. Because I've also had some meetings in terms of my diploma that I'm doing at this point in time. some kinda, not really. You know, I'm quite lazy about that because I'm always having to just make a trade-off between should I just record something or should I just make my fucking diploma? Most often I'm gonna feel like, well, I do not actually wanna just do it, you know, I just wanna record and that's the net. But yeah, you know, this is what I'm thinking about. But if I'm then having a meeting with my partner, it is like, okay, it actually takes like 20 minutes and we are always talking about an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. But in the end, we do not really need that. You know, especially if we are only talking about what really is necessary to talk about or what really is the whole meeting all about. But if you're just then talking about some other shit, like, I don't know, like whatever we're talking about, then of course, it's going to take us basically 2 fucking weeks. Or it could, you know, in the end, it could, not necessarily, but it could, you know. And this is then quite like I don't know what to say a problem, but it is like, yeah, you know, it's going to take you longer if you just talk about shit that just doesn't matter then. But yeah, Ingvar's rule is a counterfactual. What would you do if you had 10 minutes to get something done? Act accordingly. And I have to say, we all would act differently and we all would do things in a different way, of course. But now to the final question that I've always been asking, is it going to make just the quality not as good as it is before? And I would say, before I actually go through this other Parkinson's law article that I'm having in front of me, I have to say, like, no, not really. Quality is something that's really subjective. Quality is something that really depends on how you think about things. Of course, if I'm designing something and my boss doesn't like it, then it is not a good quality. Even though I like it, and even though I think it is good quality, if my boss and or the client doesn't like it, it is not good quality. You know, it is not a good product, it is not a good design, it is not a good something. And this is the point. Quality is something that's very subjective. Sometimes I do have to say that there is just some objective views on quality as well, you know, especially if it is about, like, let's say in the design world, when you're just having to just set a text and or you're typing a text and whatnot, and you can't read the text because it is too small, then it is not good. Even though it is just a good font, it is a nice font and everything looks fancy, if you can't read it, then it is quite unnecessary and therefore the quality is not really good. Or really high, and maybe, I guess, I don't know. And like, there sometimes are some objective views on quality, but most often it is actually something that's very subjective. I think something is good, and it doesn't really mean that my client likes it, nor does it mean that my boss is gonna like it, nor does it mean that another customer likes this as well. It is something that I like. And this is also quite a big point in producing content. Only because I like a video doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else is also gonna like that video. No, really. It's not gonna mean that. You know, it is something that's very subjective. I like the video, but the problem is, am I making the video for myself or am I actually making the video for somebody else? You know, and this is not a question, you know, because I'm not doing it for myself. You know, I'm probably gonna do it for somebody else. Therefore, the sense, quote unquote, of quality is going to be different because it is not for me, because it is for somebody else. For my client, for my audience, for the boss, for whomever it might be. It is about me then, most often. It really often is not about me, but it is about some other people. And their subjective opinion of quality matters then. But I think this is actually the article about how you could actually go around this whole thing as a concept, as a plan, as a just way to make things more productive and better for yourself. And yeah, it is also going to be down in the PDF. So if you want to read the PDF only, read the PDF only. And yeah, running against the clock. Make a list of your tasks and divide them up by the amount of time it takes to complete them. Then give yourself half time to complete each task, and you have to see making the time limit as crucial. Treat it like any other deadline, part of reversing what I've been indoctrinated with, whatever this fucking means, I don't fucking know. Work harder, not smarter, is to see the deadlines you set for yourself as unbreakable, just like the deadlines your boss or client sets. And this is now very, very important because it is something that we often do not do. You know, the timelines that we're setting for ourselves are often not really like that important, like not really, but in the end, you should be just treating them as something that's fucking important, you know, in that way. Like, you know, if you're just doing it in this way, if you're just willing to just see whether you can just maybe be more productive by using the Parkinson's law and all those things, you know. But let's see. Use that human instinctual longing for competition that fuels such industries as sports and gaming to make things work for you, or this work for you. You have to win against the clock, strive to beat it as if it were your opponent, without taking shortcuts and producing low quality output. This is particularly helpful if you're having trouble taking your own deadline seriously. At first, this will be partially an exercise in determining how accurate your time projections for tasks are. And this is also something that I have to say is something that makes sense. Just knowing how much time it is going to take you and just knowing how much time you have to just put into something is something that can really be just upping up or leveling up your productivity and or your efficiency as well to some degree. Because if you know exactly, okay, this task should or is going to take me X amount of time, you can also plan that. And then you know, okay, I'm going to do this at first because then I'm having a row of high productivity, which gives me then more space to just do some things that are just going to take me more time or something like this. You know, it just depends on things. You know, it depends on how you feel about things and whatever you're having to do, all those things. Don't jump straight back to original time allotment because there may be an optimum period in between. If you work at a computer, a digital timer is going to be very useful when you start doing this. It will also save you a bit of time because a timer allows you to see at glance how much longer you have. Using a clock involves some addition and subtraction. Yeah, it does. By the way, I'm not able to just read the analog clock that well. So I can if I just force myself to, but I'm not that good at it, to really be honest. It's quite something interesting, but I'm just not good at it. There are 3 utilities available for OS X, Linux, and I just wanted to say videos. It's Windows. But yeah, I'm also gonna just highlight that so that you're having this in your thing as well. Crush the cockroaches of the productivity world. Look for those little time fillers like email and feed reading that you might usually think take 10 or 20 or even, God forbid, 30 minutes. These are the cockroaches of the productivity world. Little pets that to do nothing but make your life a pain in the backside. Pains that you can't seem to get rid no matter how much you run around the house with a shoe or bug spray. Instead of doing the leisurely 20 to 30 minute morning email check, give yourself 5 minutes. If you're up for the challenge, go one better and give yourself 2 minutes. Don't give these tasks any more attention until you've completed everything on your to-do list that day, at which point you can indulge in some email reading, social networking, and feed reading to your heart content. Not that I recommend you spend not that I recommend you spend all your spare time that way. I know really not. But often it is the case, and it is often something that I'm seeing as well, that I'm sometimes actually spending my time on some bullshit, which is going to be like, it pisses one off, or can piss one off, because most often it's something that's kind of really small, but in the end it adds up to just a lot of fucking time. It adds up to 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it might be, just reading through some social networks or whatever you might be doing just in between tasks, which is going to take like 10 minutes. If you're doing that just 10 times a day, it's going to be 100 fucking minutes, which is a fucking lot, which is just more than a fucking hour. It's actually more than half an hour, 1.5 hours, I'm sorry, which is a lot, and in 1.5 hours, you're able to do so much fucking more, really a lot more. And now it is like, maybe you change it up, maybe you just do it as they say, and you're just gonna just only give yourself a certain amount of time, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. They are also gonna add up, of course, they are also gonna add up to quite something, but it's not gonna be that much if you're just really monitoring it. If you're really just tracking those tasks, if you're really just thinking about those tasks. Don't worry. Be happy. As they say in the very bottom of the whole, not of the whole thing, but of this kind of chapter. Let's call it chapter, You can experiment with Parkinson's law and squashing your deadlines down to the bare minimum in many areas of your life. Just be conscious of the line between bare minimum and not enough. What you're aiming for is a job well done in less time, not a disaster that is going to lose your employment or clients. Yeah, I know it is something to really look out for, but I think it just also makes sense. You're not gonna just, maybe also stress you out too much. If it really is something that, or just because it is also something that can be pretty stressful. And as they say as well, these are tasks where 10% of what you do is important and 90% of it is absolutely useless. This forces you to tend to the important tasks, feeds you not to read in order to improve your work, for instance. If you're a web designer, who needs to be read up on new practices and emails that are actually a high priority? experiment with how far you can take this, make your criteria for what makes an email important, and so on and so on. Is there actually something else that I'm having? No, that's it. That's it with the episode. I hope that you've liked it also the way that I've just done it in this way, with a little bit more cuts, with a little bit just trying to make things a tiny bit more interesting, I guess, some sort of. But yeah, I'm gonna see you the next time. I at least hope. And I wish you the best health, happiness, and also success, and also hope that you're gonna remind yourself and you're gonna be remembered, which basically means your legacy, which basically means just being a nice person, then also gonna be remembered as a nice person. 3 other questions that I'm having for you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? These 3 are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea, since a lot of companies started out initially with solving something that really pissed them off in the first place. So maybe you're also going to try that out. And with that being said, I'll see you the next time. So consider subscribing to the podcast and to the YouTube channel. I would appreciate it. And I'm going to see you the next time.